saw a slowdown and a contraction in the global luxury market. About 50 million people either opted out or were forced out of the luxury market over the past 2 years.
You feel people started to get tired of purchasing products and realize that we just bought too much and it didn't really make us happy.
They told us luxury came from the cobblestone streets of Italy and the camellit ateliers of France. They sold us dreams stitched in silk and sewn with legacy. But what if I told you that your $3,000 Louis Vuitton bag was actually made in a dusty workshop in China for the price of a takeout dinner? What if the Made in Italy tag was just smoke and mirrors, hiding sweatshop labor and century-old lies? And now, after decades of dominance, the luxury empire might be collapsing, not from a scandal in Paris, but from a TikTok video in Shenzhen. Oh yes, baby. The glitter is peeling, the logos are lying, and the receipts are spilling. From Dior to Louis Vuitton, the fashion fantasy is unraveling. And we've got names, numbers, lawsuits, and viral exposés to prove it. So hold on to your Birkin dupes, because the luxury world is being dragged, and it's about to get ugly. For decades, we've all been sold a dream. Luxury wasn't just a product, it was a promise. Italian cobblers hunched over wooden benches, French ateliers whispering secrets through silk and tulle, and centuries-old craftsmanship passed down like sacred scripture. You weren't just buying a handbag, you were buying a story. And for many, that story was worth every cent of the eye-watering price tag. But what if it was all a lie? Behind the glossy marketing campaigns and romantic origin stories, the luxury industry has been hiding a truth so ugly, it threatens to upend its entire foundation. Because while you were imagining your new $3,000 purse being lovingly hand-stitched in a sunlit Tuscan village, it was more likely churned out by the hundreds in a Chinese factory, often under questionable conditions and for a fraction of the cost. This isn't speculation. It's been exposed. Viral videos from whistleblowers inside China's industrial zones have peeled back the velvet curtain, revealing boxes of made-in-Italy goods being packaged by exhausted workers halfway across the globe. And here's the kicker. It's not just the knockoffs. These are real luxury items from brands that swear by their European heritage. The loophole? Many luxury companies legally slap "Made in Italy" on a product as long as the final stitching or packaging happens there, even if 90% of the work is done in China. And they've quietly relied on this loophole for years, banking on consumer ignorance while raking in billions. But the internet never sleeps, and the truth never stays buried. With TikToks racking up millions of views, factory insiders spilling receipts, and global consumers waking up, the myth of European luxury is cracking. The fantasy is unraveling, thread by thread. The question now isn't just who knew, but who's next. The king may be stepping down, and not on his own terms. Bernard Arnault, the billionaire titan behind LVMH and the world's wealthiest man for a time, is quietly making headlines again. Not for another record-shattering acquisition or an over-the-top fashion gala, but for whispers that he may be planning to retire sooner than anyone expected. And behind those whispers, a storm brewing so fierce that even the most powerful name in luxury may not be able to weather it. For decades, Arnault was the wizard behind the curtain. He didn't just build a fashion empire. He turned luxury itself into a global religion. Dior, Louis Vuitton, Fendi, Givenchy, Moët, Hennessy. The man stitched together a portfolio so vast and dominant that entire economies in Europe depend on it. But in 2025, something's changed. The sparkle of luxury is starting to dim, and Arnault, ever the strategist, may be preparing to exit before the facade fully crumbles. So why now? It's not just age. Arnault is 76, yes, but he's long gone to great lengths to delay this moment. He even raised LVMH's mandatory CEO retirement age from 75 to 80 just 2 years ago. He spent years grooming his children, 5 of them, all working in various wings of the empire, to take over. And for a while, it looked like his dynasty was set to reign for generations. But behind the scenes, The once bulletproof empire is starting to show cracks, and Arnaud knows it. The first blow? Manufacturing shame. Viral exposés have shattered the romantic illusion of European luxury craftsmanship. Footage from inside Chinese and Southeast Asian factories, where bags, shoes, and clothes are churned out by the hundreds for pennies on the dollar, have gone global. And LVMH, despite its heritage branding and sky-high price tags, is far from immune. With millions now questioning where their so-called made-in-Italy goods really come from, Arnault's empire is facing not just a PR nightmare, but a foundational threat. The core luxury customer no longer blindly trusts the label. Millennials and Gen Z, once courted as the new lifeblood of luxury, are now raising uncomfortable questions. If the goods are made in the same conditions as fast fashion, what exactly justifies the 1,000% markup? How long can a brand bank on heritage if the illusion of heritage is broken? And then there's the economic downturn. The global luxury market, once booming thanks to China's elite and Silicon Valley's nouveau riche, is stalling. Inflation, economic uncertainty, and shifting values have squeezed even the ultra-wealthy. High-end consumers are fewer and choosier. Middle-class, aspirational buyers? Nearly gone. In a market that once thrived on exclusivity and expansion, LVMH and its peers now face shrinking margins and stiffer competition from smaller, more transparent brands, and from second-hand resale platforms gutting the need to buy new. Insiders say the pressure is mounting inside LVMH Parisian headquarters. Stockholders are jittery. The once clear succession plan is muddled by internal rivalries between Arnault's children, and murmurs are growing louder. Is Bernard planning a quiet exit while he can still control the narrative? Because let's be clear, if the fantasy is unraveling, if the magic is fading, then the smartest move is to leave before the curtain falls entirely. Arnault didn't build an empire by being sentimental. He built it by knowing when to buy, when to sell, and when to disappear from the stage just as the spotlight begins to flicker. So is this just a routine transition, or the start of a collapse disguised as a graceful exit? Because when the king steps down, the empire doesn't always survive. You want to talk scandal? Let's talk about the betrayal of an entire national identity. For years, the phrase "made in Italy" has been treated like a golden seal of craftsmanship. It's supposed to mean hand-stitched leather in Florence, couture workshops in Milan, artisans perfecting their craft over generations. The fantasy sold in every glossy ad campaign, whispered from runways, and etched on $1,000 handbags. But behind the curtain, a very different story. Because now, finally, the Italian government is saying, enough. In a move that's rocked the luxury fashion industry to its core, Italian authorities have launched formal lawsuits against some of the biggest names in the business, Dior, LVMH, Armani, accusing them of massive labor violations, legal manipulation, and fraud behind the Made in Italy label. This isn't a slap on the wrist. This is war. Investigators uncovered a scheme so blatant it reads like satire. Luxury goods being manufactured in sweatshops run just outside Milan, often staffed by underpaid Chinese laborers working in dangerous, illegal conditions. These aren't just subcontractors gone rogue. These are direct links in the supply chain of some of the world's most prestigious fashion houses. The laborers, many undocumented or desperate, were living in the same cramped buildings where they worked. Some were paid as little as 2 or 3 euros per hour to produce items that sell for thousands. Why? Because all the brands had to do was ensure that one step of the process happened in Italy, often something meaningless like stitching on a zipper or applying a logo. And suddenly, by law, they could slap on that prestigious Made in Italy tag. It's legal. It's loophole exploitation. And according to prosecutors, it's fraud on a national scale. The raid started quietly. Then came the shock. Dozens of factories were stormed across northern Italy. Workers were found sleeping next to sewing machines. Some workshops had no fire exits. Others were locked from the outside. Inspectors say the conditions were no better than slave labor. The images have gone viral, and the backlash has been swift. Italian citizens, especially artisans who do uphold traditional methods, are furious. They've accused the luxury houses of dragging Italy's name through the mud, all in the pursuit of profit. But let's be honest, this isn't just about Italy. This is about a global luxury lie unraveling in real time. Luxury fashion has built an empire on illusion, on storytelling. They sell you heritage, precision, prestige. But behind the velvet curtain, it's exploitation, smoke, and mirrors. You think you're buying a handbag hand-tooled in a Tuscan village? Chances are it was mass-produced in a converted warehouse by a worker who'll never afford a plane ticket, let alone the product they just made. And now, with the Italian government taking legal action, the fashion elite can't hide behind glamorous runways and celebrity endorsements anymore. The illusion is breaking. Headlines are calling this the luxury sweatshop scandal. Parliament members are demanding new regulations to close the loopholes. And LVMH, Dior, and Armani? Their legal teams are scrambling. Armani, long considered the more honest face of Italian fashion, has released a carefully worded statement denying direct responsibility and blaming subcontractors. But the public isn't buying it. Because if these brands were truly committed to craftsmanship and ethics, how did they allow this to happen in their own backyard? Here's the uncomfortable truth. They knew. They had to know. You don't run billion-dollar companies without understanding every detail of your supply chain. The difference now is that they've been caught, and the consequences are no longer just reputational. They're legal. So where do we go from here? Europe is watching. The world is watching. And if Italy's legal system follows through, this could become the biggest reckoning in luxury fashion history. Because this time, it's not just angry consumers or watchdog bloggers making noise. It's the government of Italy, the very country these brands claim as their spiritual home, dragging them into court and demanding justice. The house of luxury is burning. And this time, the flames are real. Let's tear the silk veil off the luxury fantasy and talk numbers. Ugly, undeniable numbers. Picture this. A handbag that costs just 60 euros to produce. Not a knockoff. Not some fast fashion imitation. We're talking about a genuine luxury handbag. The kind that sits under glass in Paris boutiques, flaunted on red carpets, and listed on high-end websites for a jaw-dropping 3,000 euros or more. That's over 1,000% markup. But this isn't just about inflated prices. This is about where that 60 euros goes and what horrors are hidden behind that price tag. Because what's left out of the glamour is how that bag was really made. Italian investigators, whistleblowers, and now viral exposés have pulled back the curtain. In factory after factory on the outskirts of Florence and Milan. Yes, Italy, not China or Bangladesh, undocumented laborers, mostly Chinese migrants, work in nightmarish conditions. These aren't artisanal workshops with craftsmen in crisp aprons. These are crumbling, unlicensed sweatshops where people sew, glue, and assemble luxury items under constant surveillance, often without proper breaks, sometimes locked inside overnight, sleeping next to their machines. The workers? Paid as little as €2 for an hour, with no contracts, no health insurance, no labor protections. Some live in overcrowded dormitories crammed into the same buildings as the factories, eating, sleeping, and working in filth. They endure 14 to 18-hour shifts, sometimes more during peak fashion seasons. Also, a billionaire fashion CEO can show off record profits in the next quarterly report. And yet, that same handbag, stitched together in hellish conditions, is shipped off to a Paris showroom or luxury mall in Dubai, slapped with a brand name like Dior, Fendi, or Prada, and sold to you for thousands. Why? Because luxury isn't about quality anymore. It's about perception. It's about branding. The myth of heritage and craftsmanship has been weaponized to justify criminal markups and systemic abuse. You thought that €3,000 price tag meant you were buying exclusivity, elegance, legacy? No, you were buying a €60 product, probably made by someone who can't afford heat in the winter or shoes without holes. You were buying into a corporate con, a polished lie supported by runway theatrics and celebrity influencers who've never stepped foot inside a production facility. Let's break that markup down. Materials? often synthetic blends or low-cost leathers sourced from the cheapest tanneries, processed with chemicals that harm both the worker and the environment. Labor? Dirt cheap. Euro 10, 15 per bag, maybe split among desperate workers. Factory overhead? Negligible, especially when the factories themselves are operating off the books and evading taxes and safety regulations. Shipping and logistics? A fraction of the final price. The real cost driver? Marketing. Paying influencers, producing high-concept ad campaigns, sponsoring fashion weeks, and most importantly, maintaining the illusion. And that illusion has made luxury brands some of the most profitable businesses on earth. Take LVMH. In 2023, they posted over 80 billion euros in revenue, with profit margins exceeding 25%, all while hundreds of their products were reportedly being manufactured in conditions described by labor rights activists as 21st century slavery. The expose that blew the lid off this came from Italian labor investigations, but Chinese social media platforms like Douyin and Weibo have added gasoline to the fire. Videos showing the inside of these secretive workshops have gone viral. Workers describing life inside these shadow factories are gaining global attention. And suddenly, even the most loyal luxury consumers are starting to ask, where's my money really going? Because if the bag cost 60 euros to make, where's the rest of that 2,940 euro going? To executive bonuses, to luxury jets, to private art collections, to a marketing machine designed to convince you it was worth it. This isn't fashion. It's exploitation sold with a bow. And here's the real kicker. Those same brands will try to spin this. They'll claim they didn't know. They'll blame subcontractors. They'll pledge to review supply chains or audit factory partners. But let's be real. You don't run a billion-dollar empire without knowing exactly where your product is made and how much it costs. So what happens now? Consumers are angry. Investigators are closing in. Italy is cracking down on factory conditions. Lawsuits are mounting. But will it be enough? Or will the luxury machine just find new loopholes, new scapegoats, and keep the markups coming? One thing is clear. The 60 euro handbag is no longer a dirty little secret. It's a symbol of everything that's rotten in the heart of the fashion world. And no matter how shiny the storefront, no matter how chic the branding, you can't unsee the truth. The question is, will you keep buying the fantasy? The luxury world wasn't ready for Wang's son, but TikTok was. A quiet storm began brewing deep within the scrolling feeds of Chinese TikTok, known locally as Douyin, where everyday users started posting something no one expected. Detailed, suspiciously well-informed factory exposés. Not blurry footage, not anonymous claims. We're talking full-on tours of manufacturing floors, narration included, showing step-by-step how your favorite 3,000 euro luxury handbags are actually made for 60 euros or less. And at the center of this digital rebellion, a former logistics manager turned whistleblower, Wang's son. Wang's son wasn't your typical activist. He didn't scream into the camera or burn designer goods in protest. He simply pulled out his phone and told the truth, with receipts. His first viral video? A calm walkthrough of a warehouse in China, with high-resolution footage showing branded handbag components stacked in unmarked boxes. He rattled off SKUs and client codes like a man reading from a script he wrote himself, because he had. He knew the shipping routes. He knew which brands had their products assembled in which industrial districts. And he named names. Dior, Fendi, Louis Vuitton, Armani. And that was just the beginning. Soon, other Douyin users joined the movement. Anonymous factory workers, disgruntled middlemen, even translators who had worked for subcontractors began uploading their own behind-the-scenes peeks into the not-so-glamorous world of made-in-Italy and French craftsmanship. Except, spoiler, none of it was Italian or French. It was Jiangsu, Guangzhou, Wenzhou. Factories where laborers were crammed into bunk-style quarters, sometimes sleeping next to the cutting tables to meet delivery deadlines. One woman's clip showed her stamping made in Italy labels onto bags in a Chinese factory, because under the law, a product can be labeled made in Italy if a tiny portion of it is assembled there. She laughed, This bag has never even seen Italy. The TikTok algorithm, ruthless and hungry, did the rest. These videos spread like wildfire, not just across China, but globally. English subtitles, voiceovers, and duets brought these exposés to an audience that included millions of Western users, many of whom were shocked to learn their luxury goods had more in common with fast fashion than artisan heritage. That's when things got messy. Suddenly, accounts were being deleted. Videos that had racked up millions of views vanished overnight. Wang Xin's page went dark. Followers scrambled to repost clips and screenshots. But the censorship was coordinated, fast, and deeply suspicious. Why? Because this wasn't just about handbags anymore. It was about money and power. Luxury brands are some of the biggest advertisers and investors in digital platforms, TikTok included. Their partnerships run deep. Think branded challenges, influencer collaborations, front-row Fashion Week content. And when the viral videos started naming luxury conglomerates like LVMH and Kering, the companies allegedly started pushing back. TikTok's official stance? The videos violated community guidelines for misinformation or unauthorized filming. But critics weren't buying it. The censorship felt too targeted, too synchronized. Whole hashtags were suddenly unsearchable. Accounts with massive followings went dark. Users started whispering about backroom deals, accusations that TikTok may have bowed to corporate pressure to silence dissent. And it wasn't just TikTok China. The Western version of TikTok also saw removals. Some creators reposting the exposés in English reported shadow bans. Their engagement plummeted, their videos disappeared from For You pages, and some even received account warnings. The takedown wasn't quiet, it sparked rage. Comment sections exploded with conspiracy theories, consumer rights demands, and calls to boycott both TikTok and luxury brands. Hashtag factory expose, hashtag luxury lies, and hashtag TikTok censorship began trending, before they too became mysteriously limited in reach. Ironically, the attempt to silence the truth only amplified it. TikTok was being dragged into a global scandal, caught between protecting profits and preserving free speech. And Wang's son, he didn't stop. He resurfaced on X, formerly Twitter, then on Telegram, YouTube Shorts, and WeChat groups. His community followed him across platforms like digital nomads. In one of his follow-up videos, he said simply, "They can delete my videos. They can't delete the truth." Since then, he's become a cult figure in the anti-luxury movement. His latest exposé? A breakdown of how finished luxury goods are sometimes shipped to Italy for a single stitch or button placement, just to meet the legal threshold for made in Italy. He showed the invoices. He showed the customs documents. The receipts keep coming. Now, the fashion world is on high alert. Brands are scrambling to rewrite supplier contracts. Influencers are nervously distancing themselves. Some designers are preemptively releasing transparency statements, hoping to outrun the fallout. But the damage is done. The genie is out of the bag, and TikTok helps set it free. In a world where a single video can undo decades of brand storytelling, Wang's son proved one thing. Truth travels faster than luxury, and it costs a hell of a lot less. The luxury illusion is cracking, and in the rubble, a new empire is rising. One not built on billion-dollar ad campaigns or 150-year-old fashion houses, but on side-by-side TikToks, Chinese e-commerce, and a generation of consumers fed up with being lied to. Welcome to the age of the dupe empire. Let's talk Taobao, DHgate, AliExpress, once mocked as the bargain bin corners of the internet, now the unofficial competitors of Louis Vuitton and Dior. These factory direct sellers are no longer hiding in the shadows. They've rebranded, retooled, and recruited Gen Z as their biggest weapon. Why pay $3,500 for a designer tote when you can get one for $35 with the same stitching, hardware, and material, straight from the same factories where the real ones are allegedly made? That's the question echoing across TikTok, Reddit, and YouTube halls. The dupe revolution isn't just about affordability. It's about truth, transparency, and yes, ethics. It started quietly, with influencers showing Amazon dupes as casual alternatives. But then came the blowout side-by-side videos. One creator lays down her $2,900 Saint Laurent bag. Next to it, a $65 version from Taobao. She zooms in. Same quilted leather. Same YSL-inspired hardware. Inside, lined. Dust bag included. The only difference? The price tag and the guilt. The views? Millions. The comments? Brutal. Why are we paying more for lies? So the luxury version is made in China for $60 and sold for $3,000. But I'm wrong for buying the $60 one directly? That's the dupe logic, and it's infectious. What once would have been considered tacky or shameful, buying a knockoff, is now reframed as resistance. In the wake of whistleblowers like Wang's son exposing the exploitation behind high-end fashion, the moral high ground is shifting. People aren't just asking if the bags look the same. They're asking who made them, under what conditions, and where the money goes. Let's do the math. A luxury bag that costs 60 euros to make is sold for 3,000 euros. That's a 4,900% markup. That money doesn't go to artisans. It doesn't go to living wages. It goes to shareholders, billionaires, and branding. Meanwhile, a Taobao dupe that costs 65 euro might come from the exact same supply chain, minus the retail markup, marketing budget, and corporate bloat. And more importantly, the people buying it know what they're buying. There's no illusion, no fake story of Italian craftsmanship. It's just what it is, and that honesty is refreshing. There's even a new term for these shoppers, dupe ethicists. A growing community that argues buying factory-direct dupes is actually more ethical than buying luxury. Why? Because it doesn't support the false narratives, labor exploitation, and greenwashing of the fashion elite. These aren't counterfeiters pretending it's real. These are alternatives, products that deliver the same function and style without the corporate deception. Dupe creators have even begun rating replicas like tech reviewers, build quality, hardware weight, stitch count, leather softness, smell tests. It's turned into a science. Some influencers get sent dozens of dupe bags a week just to review them on camera. And the verdict? Many dupes are indistinguishable from the originals. And here's the kicker. Luxury brands are losing control of the narrative. Once upon a time, being seen with a fake bag was embarrassing. Now, it's a flex, a statement. I'm not buying into the scam. The idea that luxury is about exclusivity is collapsing under the weight of public exposure. If your bag is mass-produced in the same Chinese factory regardless, what exactly are you paying for? A logo? A lie? And it gets even more chaotic. Some dupe sellers are going further. They're customizing. You can choose colors not even offered by the original brands. Want a Dior-style tote in neon green? Done. Want a Chanel with real lambskin but no logo so it doesn't count as a fake? They'll do it. It's a bespoke black market, and it's outpacing the legit fashion world. Of course, luxury brands are fighting back. Lawyers, takedown notices, cease and desist campaigns. But it's a losing war. The internet moves too fast. Sellers change names and URLs overnight. The moment one link dies, 10 more appear. And the more brands try to suppress it, the more curious consumers become. And remember, this isn't just a Chinese phenomenon. Dupe culture is now global. There are Telegram groups with hundreds of thousands of members, subreddits dedicated to dupe hauls, entire YouTube channels comparing high-end goods with dupes side by side, and the dupes keep winning. So now, we're facing a future the fashion world never prepared for. What happens when everyone knows the truth and stops pretending? What happens when the illusion of luxury fades, and all that's left is a $3,000 lie next to a $60 truth? The dupe empire is no longer a shadow market. It's a movement. And if the luxury giants don't rethink their model, their customers might just go direct to the source and never come back. Just as the world starts waking up to the truth behind luxury's glossy facade, factory exposés, dupe culture, and billionaire markups, a chilling new narrative starts creeping in. Is it all too perfect? Too well-timed? Too detailed? The viral videos, the factory tours, the price breakdowns, the raw footage of workers sleeping on floors under sewing machines, the luxury logos blurred just enough to avoid lawsuits. For every jaw-dropping expose, a new whisper echoes behind the scenes. Is this real, or is someone pulling the strings? Because the backlash from the fashion industry? Swift, aggressive, and suddenly strategic. Let's rewind. When Chinese TikTokers like Wang Sun dropped those hyper-detailed factory walkthroughs, naming names, showing production slips, and casually revealing the cost of goods sold, viewers were stunned. But insiders? They were suspicious. How did these influencers get that access? Who let them film that? And why weren't these facilities locked down tighter than a luxury vault? Whispers grew louder in group chats among buyers, fashion bloggers, and even lawyers. Was this a rogue expose, or something more orchestrated? A former LVMH supply chain executive, speaking under condition of anonymity, raised eyebrows in a private industry webinar. Most of these factories require NDAs. Strict ones. You don't just waltz in with a camera and start name-dropping brands without someone greenlighting that. So either these influencers don't care about getting sued, or someone higher up wants this footage out. And that's where the conspiracy really begins. One theory: factory overruns. Unsanctioned production beyond what a brand orders. Factories often create extras, hoping to sell them later as gray market stock. Some insiders believe these exposés are subtle warnings. Pay us better, or we'll keep leaking. Blackmail by TikTok. Another theory: calculated leaks from disgruntled subcontractors. Maybe they're fed up with getting pennies on the dollar while luxury giants rake in billions. These exposés could be a power play, a factory revolt disguised as social justice. Then there's the most sinister take, that some of these videos are planted by rival luxury houses themselves. In a ruthless industry driven by perception and prestige, a few well-placed exposés could damage a competitor's image, tank their stock, or turn public favor overnight. Is it that far-fetched? Remember, this is the same industry that hires private investigators to track leaks, runs smear campaigns, and files lawsuits over the shape of handbags. If they'll fight over a silhouette, imagine what they do over $1 billion empire. And then come the lawyers. Legal experts are now dissecting every frame of these viral factory videos. If a factory has signed NDAs with LVMH, Kering, or Richemont, leaking footage is a violation, plain and simple. But here's the twist. If those videos come from subcontractors several layers removed from the luxury brand, things get murky. Legally, the blame becomes a hot potato. One intellectual property lawyer noted, "It's like peeling back an onion. The brand contracts a manufacturer who subcontracts to a regional partner, who hires a facility, who hires a labor broker, who hires workers. At the bottom of that chain is a 22-year-old filming TikToks. Who's really liable?" And that's exactly the problem. These leaks are hard to trace and harder to stop. Lawsuits? Sure. But which jurisdiction? China? Italy? France? The US? And who even is standing when every party is pretending the supply chain is clean? To make matters worse, some lawyers fear that if these cases do go to court, the discovery process might unearth even more damning evidence. Labor violations, illegal subcontracting, fake made in Italy labels. So brands are often afraid to push too hard because they might blow their own cover. Meanwhile, influencers like Wang Sun are growing more emboldened. Each takedown only fuels more interest. Each DMCA strike becomes a badge of honor. Entire accounts get deleted, only to reappear days later under new names with even more followers. It's a digital game of cat and mouse. But here's the scary part for the luxury world. The cats are outnumbered. And now, the lines between truth and agenda are blurring. Are these exposés brave acts of whistleblowing or tactical PR sabotage? Are these influencers rogue truth tellers or being fed just enough information to destabilize a rival house? Are the factories complicit or trying to survive in a brutal, secretive economy? No one really knows. And that uncertainty? That's what's eating at the heart of the luxury industry. Because if they go too hard, they risk exposing skeletons. If they do nothing, they risk collapse. This is no longer about handbags and logos. This is about power, secrecy, and control. And as the conspiracy whispers grow louder, the one question no brand wants to hear keeps echoing. If it's all fake, why do you care so much when someone shows the truth? For decades, they were the silent engine behind the luxury machine. Invisible, overworked, and drastically underpaid. Chinese manufacturers, the lifeblood of global fashion, labored in anonymity while European brands took all the credit, the glamour, and, of course, the profit. But now, that silence is shattered. A new era has begun, and it's being led not by designers in Paris, but by factory bosses in Guangzhou. This is the revolution from within. The same hands that stitch $3,000 Dior bags and $5,000 Gucci coats are saying no more. After years of exploitation that was easy to hide behind, made in Italy labels and slick marketing campaigns, Chinese manufacturers are no longer content with being the dirty little secret of luxury. They want it on the game, and they're playing to win. Let's break it down. A high-end handbag that sells for $3,000? It might cost just 60 euros to produce, not including marketing, not including celebrity endorsements, just pure, uncut manufacturing. And that work? It's not done by artisans sipping espresso in Florence. It's done by workers in Dongguan or Zhejiang under fluorescent lights, often with no labor protections, no breaks, and no recognition. Factories once operated in the shadows, fearful of losing brand contracts if they spoke up. Now, they've realized something powerful. They don't need the middleman anymore. With platforms like Taobao, DHgate, and TikTok Shop, they can sell directly to consumers. No French accent required. No fake atelier stories. Just the same quality, sometimes better, at a fraction of the price. And the most explosive part? These aren't just dupes. Many of these so-called dupe bags, they're made in the exact same factories as the originals, using the same materials, by the same skilled workers, sometimes even on the same production line, just outside the hours paid for by the brand. It's the factory world's version of a mic drop. What started as whispers is now a roar. Chinese manufacturers have begun launching their own brands, or simply repurposing overstock, overruns, and unbranded pieces and selling them as is. They're using social media not just to market, but to educate. TikTok lives featuring factory owners walking viewers through the design, the stitching, the leather grading, total transparency, something luxury brands fear more than knockoffs. And the messaging? Clear, raw, and unapologetic. We make the bags. Why should we earn pennies while they make billions? The hypocrisy is impossible to ignore. Luxury brands have long sold the idea that their goods are exclusive because they're crafted with care, born in Europe, and touched by generational artisans. But now, the very people doing the crafting are speaking up, and they're asking hard questions. Why are we hidden while the CEO gets magazine covers? Why are we paid minimum wage while the brand gets to charge 1,000% markups? Why are we penalized for selling the exact products we made with our own hands? It's a class war, a labor rebellion, and a branding collapse all in one. And the movement is spreading. Some Chinese manufacturers have banded together to create collectives, pooling resources to offer end-to-end services, design, production, and direct-to-consumer shipping. They're hiring social media managers, brand strategists, and even influencers to take their message global. They're reclaiming their narrative. No more backdoor deals. No more silent suffering. And buyers? They're responding. Consumers are tired of the luxury illusion. In an age where transparency sells, people are beginning to ask themselves, why pay $3,000 for a bag made under poor conditions when the actual maker is offering the same quality for $150? And being honest about it, this isn't just a fashion story. It's a revolution in global economics, power, and perception. Luxury brands are panicking. They built their empires on two things, secrecy and status. But when the workers expose the secrets and status becomes associated with exploitation, what's left? This is the storm they never saw coming. The very hands that built their thrones are now tearing down the illusion. One viral video, one direct sale, one stitch at a time. The factories aren't staying silent anymore. They're speaking, selling, winning. Let's not sugarcoat it. For decades, the luxury fashion world has fed us a fantasy. They sold us a dream woven in silk, stitched in shadow, and sealed with a logo. The myth? That when you buy a $3,000 handbag or a $5,000 coat, you're not just buying a product. You're buying heritage, craftsmanship, status, a piece of an elite world where artisans sip espresso in Florence while delicately hand-finishing your personal slice of perfection. But peel back the label, and the truth is uglier than anyone wants to admit. That made in Italy tag? It might mean the bag was zipped up in Milan after being entirely assembled in a Chinese factory, just enough to pass legal loopholes. That crafted by hand description? The hand likely belongs to a laborer working 16-hour shifts in a cramped workshop, earning a few dollars a day, sleeping next to machines, and never once seeing the luxury stores their work ends up in. The hypocrisy is industrial grade. The same brands that plaster runways with slogans about empowerment and sustainability are, behind closed doors, outsourcing their reputations to sweatshops. They claim legacy, yet depend on anonymity. They flaunt exclusivity while quietly mass-producing in hidden factories and marking up the cost by over 1,000%. Let's break that down again. A luxury bag costs $50 to make. Materials, labor, shipping done. That same bag is slapped with a designer label and sold to you for $3,000. And what do you really get for that $2,950 markup? A whisper of status, a logo, an illusion, not superior quality, not ethical labor, not transparency, just marketing. So ask yourself, are you really buying luxury or just buying into a lie? The story was always curated for you. The ads, the runways, the celebrity endorsements. You were shown the glamour, never the grind. You were told it was rare, handcrafted, and pure, never that it was manufactured in silence, behind closed doors, by workers denied dignity. And here's the kicker. The people who actually made your luxury bag, they're not just speaking up now, they're selling too. Direct to consumers. Same materials, same hands, a fraction of the price. No logo but full truth. So what's really luxurious? A $3,000 illusion sold by billionaires who silence whistleblowers and raid factories? Or $150 product made by the very people who built the empire and finally decided to own their worth? Luxury has become a costume, a sticker slapped onto industrial exploitation, a game of perception, not principle. And now, the whole world is watching as the curtain falls. So here's your final mic drop, straight and unfiltered. If your $3,000 handbag was made for $50 by someone living in a factory with no windows, no labor protections, and no credit, did you buy luxury? Or did you just buy a lie with a logo? It's time to stop equating expensive with ethical. It's time to stop confusing branding with value. It's time to stop worshiping logos like they mean something. Because real luxury isn't about price. It's about principle. And if that makes you uncomfortable, good. That's where real change begins. Now ask yourself, are you still chasing the dream they sold you? Or are you finally ready to wake up? Because the truth is out, and it's not going back in the bag.